Hello, Privyet. Welcome back, tubers and connoisseurs of fine Imperial and Soviet military. What do we have today?
Today we'll be discussing a really interesting subject. Medal for 20th anniversary of the Red Army, or as it's officially known, 20th anniversary of RKKA. RKKA it's an abbreviation which stands for Workers and Peasants Red Army. In Russian, it's Рабоче-крестьянская Красная Армия. RKKA.
Okay.
So the interesting thing about this medal that many people don't realize, this is the first Soviet medal actually.
Oh, the first one.
Soviet Union never had any medals before this first one. They did have some orders. The first one appeared in 1918. Of course, they first denounced every order that being a special club or special organization for people that are somehow elevated from the others, and they proclaimed that now we won't have any classes, it's a classless society, everybody is equal. Of course, that was nonsense, they knew it soon enough, and they reverted to slowly but surely to the old system. Initially with orders, Order of the Red Banner, then a bit later came Order of Red Banner of Labor, and so forth. So they had a few of those awards, which were very hard to earn, very special, before 1938, but in 1938 an interesting thing happened. The first medal appeared, Medal for 20th Anniversary of the Red Army. And it's a very collectible piece. Many collectors who are into Soviet material know about it and look for it. It is quite scarce, and we'll discuss why. We'll also discuss today why it even appeared, what was the historical background, what makes it interesting, the calamity that happened just before, and the next calamity that was just ahead, what makes it rare. And of course we will discuss the physical characteristic, what it's made of, how it's made, the type 1, the type 2 suspension, all the interesting numismatic points, things that are of value, of importance to collectors. We will discuss prices, how the prices for this medal changed over the many years that at least I've been in business. We'll refer to some of the older catalogs that we published before the internet age. And then our prices from 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And very importantly, last but not least, we'll discuss fakes. Because this medal is very often faked.
Okay, very important.
I will show some points that you have to pay attention to as a collector. And we'll even have a fake to examine and to compare with the real pieces.
Very nice, very nice.
So this is our program for today.
Yeah, so do you have some samples for us?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. These are, this one and this, two examples, very nice examples actually, of the what they call Type 1 medal for 20th anniversary of RKKA. There was really just one medal. There was no second issue or third issue or whatnot. There was just one type. The reason they call it Type 1 and Type 2 is simply because there was a change in the way it was worn in 1943. In June 1943, there was a big change in regulations in Uniform Code, and that affected how the medals even looked. So suspensions, the first type, which you see here, rectangular suspension, smaller size, changed to the 5-sided suspension. So many of those early suspensions were discarded, and that's what makes the Type 1 suspension rare. But we'll discuss this in more detail. Generally speaking, what you see is a silver medal. It's made of 925 silver, which makes it sterling silver. There are a lot of interesting details. You can see this Red Army soldier shooting a rifle, tufts of grass around him. It's very, very fine details that you have to pay attention to that many fakes lack, the way to tell if it's original or not. Dates, 1918, when the Red Army was officially formed, through 1938, and the Roman numeral 20 in the front. It was actually gold-plated. You can see on this particular example little traces of it. Perhaps it stands out a little bit. And the red star itself is enameled, high quality, hard-baked, so-called enamel.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That is very specific to Russian and Soviet decorations. And they continued from the imperial times, the tradition of making enamel of utmost quality.
Yes, yes.
Translucent, beautiful, also lasts quite well. It will
Durable.
It's very durable. It will
Yeah.
resist bad weather, and even many chemicals. Unless you like smash it over the concrete floor,
Oh, see.
it will probably stay alive. So this is type 1, as I mentioned. Then the type 2 came up, which had this 5-sided suspension. But let me go back and discuss first the history behind the medal. What was the reason? Raison d'etre, as French said.
Right. Why all of a sudden a first medal?
Why the first
Right.
medal? And we have to look at what happened with the Soviet military in the preceding years.
Okay.
Civil War, by large, ended around 1920-21. Soviet Union was up and coming. It was already recognized by many Western countries. It was building its heavy industries in leaps and bounds. And of course, Stalin solidified power over this post-revolution, post-Civil War years, to the point that he felt free to destroy any of his potential enemies. Not even people who were actively plotting or resisting his rule, but people who were hypothetically capable at some point of causing problems. And because one could say he was very paranoid, others could say he was ultimate survivor, very cynical, of course a monster, he felt free to finally settle some scores with people who didn't fully support him, or just with people who had too much charisma. And some of those most dangerous people were Red Army commanders, people who had military, who had following in the military, who had military experience, expertise, and were actually capable at some point in the future of staging a coup. And that was of grave concern to him. So how it all started with what we call now Great Purge was an orchestrated killing, murder, of one of the most popular leaders of the Bolshevik Party, Kirov. He was murdered at his office. Now we know that this was entirely plot made by Stalin, that the person who shot him was somehow coerced into doing it, and Stalin was behind it all along. But of course, the counter-revolutionary elements, Trotsky in particular, former competitor, were blamed for it, and mass terror started at that point, looking for any culprit, any past enemy, any enemy class person who survived somehow after the Civil War. They were now a target again. And in the initial few years, it kind of developed sort of slowly. It wasn't on a huge scale that we saw later on. But in 1936, Stalin got very disillusioned with the person who was in charge of the purges, Genrikh Yagoda, a very notorious guy who was one of the early Bolshevik leaders. He was deputy of Dzerzhinsky, founder of Soviet secret police, and then always held important roles there until he became Narkomo People's Commissar of Internal Affairs. But he was still not fully into mass prosecution. So to Stalin's taste, this wasn't enough. He wasn't killing enough people. He wasn't taking out enough of potential enemies. And that led to his demise. So in 1937, Yagoda is taken out. He was executed, accused of all the crimes imaginable. And in his place, Stalin appointed a very reliable crony who was really a non-entity named Yezhov. And this fellow had no qualms about anything. He was generally despised. He was of small stature. He was very indistinguished. He was not a great leader of anything. His lucky star was that in 1930 he personally met Stalin, and Stalin took liking of him. And then he was willing, obviously, to execute any Stalin's orders without questioning. And that was good enough for him to eventually, pretty soon, become the chief of Soviet secret police, of NKVD. And an immense wave of terror unfolded. There was the famous Second Moscow Process, for example, affair, when former Bolshevik leaders all went on trial, almost all. Very few of the what they called Lenin's Guard, people who actually conducted the revolution, who were Lenin's allies, were now targets, and they went to Gulag never to return. Many were executed. Those who were sent out for 10-year, 15-year sentences for imaginary crimes, they were never heard from again.
Wow.
Their families were oftentimes also prosecuted. Then the next stage was the affair of the military. So all the top military commanders, some of the top marshals, like Igor, for example, that were famous heroes of World War I in some cases, and definitely of the revolution, and war with the Bolsheviks all along, and were considered completely trustworthy by everybody, they were now called traitors. They were accused of espionage in many cases, espionage for Germany or Japan or what you name it, and they were shot. Tukhachevsky is one case in point. So now all the top layers of command that were his appointees or served with them, or were in any way, shape or form connected with those very top leaders who got executed. They were targets too. So one thing after another, an immense wave of terror decimated the military. By 1938, there is an estimate that some 28,000 Red Army commanders, and we are talking top layer, people that were equivalent of a general, brigadier general, and higher, and even colonels or lieutenant colonels, they were destroyed. And that's just in the Red Army. You have to add Soviet Navy and aviation. So altogether, maybe we are talking about well over 30,000, 35,000.
My God, so these were Russian patriots.
You could call them that.
Yeah. Well, they sacrificed for their motherland.
Well, in the way that they saw it fit, maybe. You know, I'm a little skeptical. Some of them deserved their fate, quite frankly. Like Tukhachevsky, for example, one of the five early first Soviet marshals, and one of the three that got executed. He was known for example, for putting down rebellions of peasants in Tambov region with chemicals, with poison gases. So they, you could be cynical and say they got what was coming for them. But one way or the other, the army was decimated. Now, there is an argument also that it was a blessing in disguise, because a lot of these people who got prosecuted, Stalin's Patriots, they were old cronies, they were political appointees, they outlived their usefulness. Maybe they were reliable, good, brave, competent even commanders in 1920s, in the early 20s, during the Civil War, but by now they were old guard that were due to be replaced.
Wow. And
what happened? Stalin eradicated the top layer commanders and replaced by simply promoting them, the lower echelon. But 1938, the purges kind of had run their course. And now the policy needed to change. You would ask why. Well, first of all, Stalin had completed his mission. He destroyed anybody who was a potential danger to him. Anybody of independent thought or charisma or following was out. Now these were new people on top that owed everything to Stalin. That was number one. Number two, guess what was happening in 1938? The Second World War was just right around the corner. Yeah. And all these claims in Soviet literature that Soviet Union was completely unprepared for war, that Soviet Union was viciously attacked, stabbed in the back by by Germany, despite the non-aggression, this is baloney. We know that. Soviet Union was actively preparing for World War II, and you could say even the Soviet Union was a chief instigator of World War II.
How so?
Well, if you look at history that got unveiled recently, you will notice that, well, number one, Soviet Union attacked practically every country that it had a border with. Name one, I mean, maybe Norway it wasn't attacked, but every place else, from Mongolia to Persia to Poland, Romania, literally any neighbor that Soviet Union had was in danger of being attacked. That's one thing. The other thing is There was a pact with Hitler that we know of, Molotov-Ribbentrop
Yes.
Pact. But even before that, Soviet Union was providing training to German army very actively. There were
You don't say. Providing assistance in the
there
training to the
there are
Wehrmacht?
documented cases where Soviet Union was actively helping Germany to develop its Panzer Corps, future Panzer commanders, future German tankers that
Okay.
attacked Soviet Union later on. They were trained in the Soviet Union. So Germany was not allowed to have a Panzer force
Okay.
according to Versailles Treaty, or submarine force, or serious air force. Luftwaffe pilots underwent training in secret Soviet bases
No
in the Soviet
kidding.
interior during the late part of 20th, early 30s, and even mid 30s. There was a Soviet submarine base built for the Germans,
For U-boats.
for U-boats, just before the beginning of Second World War.
Wow.
And Germans actually used that base in the north to attack Norway during the invasion.
That is fascinating.
So this is a hidden part of history.
Right,
So
right.
Soviet Union was preparing for war that they made possible by arming Hitler.
Interesting.
The war, of course, wouldn't go exactly the way that they expected, but that's a subject for a separate discussion.
Wow.
What's a fact is that war was coming. They knew it full well, Kremlin leadership and Stalin personally, and they were ready to sort of throw scraps from the table to the military to make them understand, if you live this long to receive this medal, you are in good graces. And there were very special requirements to receive the medal. You couldn't just get it for being very good. You had to be in service in the Red Army for 20 years. 20 years, if you count down, that's from 1918. Red Army was only formed in 1918.
So each recipient was, you could say, vetted.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
By now, not many of them were still alive, because all this old guard, all the original commanders, people who
Yeah.
started service maybe as enlisted men but then advanced through the ranks by 1938, they were no longer there.
Interesting.
Many of them were killed,
Wow.
thousands and thousands, or maimed, or starving and
Yes.
not good for anything anymore. So in 1938, the policy is starting to change. And there are many indications of that. Yagoda was out. Yezhov, who was even worse, was about to be out. He might have not known it, but there was already writing on the wall for him. In April of 1938, all of a sudden, he gets a new post of chief of transportation, minister, so to speak, or People's Commissar, as it was called back then, of transportation. Well, why would you dilute the post of somebody so important as to run the entire Soviet police, secret police, and other branches of it, to give him an extra post? Well, he
Right.
was being edged out.
Oh, okay.
And then Beria finally replaced him. In another couple of years, Yezhov would be executed himself, also accused of all the crimes that he accused others of, suffering the same fate. And in 1938, their policy greatly relaxed toward the military. So there were not many executions. A couple of high-end people were still persecuted after that, including famously Marshal Blücher, one of the 5 top Soviet marshals. And you may wonder why such a name, Blücher.
Interesting, yeah, Blücher is
not
German.
not a relative of Field Marshal Blücher,
No, it's not, okay.
hero of Napoleonic Wars.
Yeah, yeah.
But interestingly enough, his namesake, because his parents were peasants, his grandparents were peasants, and their feudal lord just had a great liking of Blücher, who was, of course, a ally of Russia. And he decided to just change their name and start calling them Blücher.
Wow.
So the family got a new name.
Fascinating. The
And
Blücher
so
connection.
Marshal Blücher. So he became a marshal, one of the first ones. Stalin didn't like him too much. He assumed too much independence. He was running Far Eastern military in the Soviet Union, Far East, and didn't do all that great in his encounters with the Japanese. So one thing led to the other. He got executed. But overall, if you received this medal in February of 1938 on the Red Army Day, It practically meant that, you know what, you're one of the few good boys.
Wow.
So you can stay. We allow you to live. But in return, we expect your total loyalty.
Wow.
So this medal was more than just a token. It was a reminder who is in charge and who do you owe everything.
Oh, I
So
see.
we expect you in a year or two when the war starts and when, shells are flying, we expect you to give it all for the motherland, for the person that owns you, and that's
Incredible.
person.
A must-have for every Soviet collector.
Oh, absolutely. The first Soviet
Yes.
important military medal, first medal of all, and a very important military medal if you know the history and what led to its establishment.
Yes.
And the requirements, as I said, were very tough, so not very many of them were issued. Modern estimates are about 37, 38,000
That's very small.
people were awarded. You have to also understand the rarity is due to the fact that these people were military cadre, military professionals. They were still serving in most cases in 1941 when the Barbarossa started and Germany attacked. They were the first to die in many cases. Entire Soviet armies and even France were chewed up, decimated, destroyed in the first attack leading to the Battle of Moscow.
Yes, yes.
So how many of the recipients survived? Not very many. Not very many.
Yeah.
So that all leads to this medal being quite scarce and very desirable, of course. It's also beautifully made, and silver is stands out.
Yeah, for the average collector out there, when they see 20 in Roman numerals, XX, they can easily think like, oh, this is, there were other medals before, like a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, but not so.
Not so.
It only started with the 20th year.
1938, and in my strong opinion, you won't read it in history books. I never saw this explanation. Soviet history, of course, never mentioned anything, and even in modern history books, you will not notice the reason for the medal. But in my, I hope, educated opinion, somewhat, it has its place for a reason.
Definitely.
For a reason.
Wow.
So 1938, if you live that long, you're a good boy. Go and die for the motherland, let me tell you so.
Yes, yes. Tough times.
Now we value you enough to give you a nice medal.
Yes, yes. So what's the value today if a collector wanted to have it in their collection?
Well, it depends greatly on the suspension.
Okay.
And I mentioned it briefly before. Look how complex it is.
Yes.
And this suspension is unique to the medal for 20th anniversary. No other Soviet medal has anything resembling it.
Okay.
You see, it consists of the main part, which is in brass, silver-plated brass. Then there is this plate that holds the ribbon.
Yes.
And originally, it was mounted just under the ribbon. So ribbon would fold over this rectangular retaining plate.
Okay.
Then on top went the ribbon. The ends of it would be sewn together. And then on top there is a screw plate that would attach the medal to the uniform. It's a screwback construction. You were expected to poke a hole in your tunic.
Yes, yes.
And then if you had to change the tunic, then you would take medal from one and put it on another. You had no right to have more than one medal.
Yes. And I noticed there's the number on the screwback.
This is very important.
Not on the medal.
Not on the medal. Again, it's unique to this particular medal. There were some badges that had numbers on screw plate, but never medals. This is the only one in history that has that. The lettering here stands for Mandvor, which is short for Monetny Dvor, which is literally can be translated as coin yard, place where they make money, where they stamp money. Just mint. We call it mint.
Mint. Yeah.
So it's the mint production, of course. And the serial number was individual to every person. And what was also interesting is that medal came with a certificate, like everything in the Soviet Union had to be certified.
The bonuses of collecting Soviet militaria.
And there was a serial number of the certificate. So the person would receive the medal with the serial number on the screw plate matching the serial number in his award certificate.
Oh wow!
And
That's
this
the
is
man.
how a typical certificate for one of these medals look, you will notice that the date of issue is 23 February. That's when the medal was issued. So it's unlikely that he actually got the medal on this date, but at least this is what the document says, 23 February 1938. Yeah. You see a photograph of this individual. Stamp, very important. Stamp should go over the photo.
Yes.
Otherwise, otherwise you don't know if this photo really belongs or somebody edited. Some of the documents come without a photo. This is very commonplace. Of course, it's a plus to have one of this photo.
So some do not have photos.
Some do not have photos.
But this one does.
This one does. Here's another case. This is, by the way, one that doesn't have a photo.
Okay.
It says place for a photograph, but it was left blank.
Okay.
Which was really not important to put a photo there because the recipient would be expected at that point to always carry internal passport.
Oh, I see.
Few people know that. So in the Soviet Union, you were supposed to wear a passport with you, have a passport with you at any time if you went outside. And that will show his photograph and his name. We can see that he was major, his name. By the way, an interesting name, Gunstein. Gunstein. You would think could be a Jewish name or German. Well, we found out from the various internet sources and archives that he was actually a German.
No,
he was ethnic German. There was a big population of Germans living in the south of Russia and along the Volga region, Volga Deutsch, they called them. Interesting thing happened during the Yezhov time, Yezhovshchina, so-called in Russian, the persecution of the military. One of the things that happened is they threw out everybody who was so-called non-Soviet nationality, meaning anybody of Polish ethnicity, anybody of German ethnicity, Latvian, Lithuanian, and so forth and so on. You can continue the list. Was thrown out simply because he was a non-Soviet nationality.
Wow.
Like the guy could have been born. Of course, he was born in what later became Soviet Union.
Yes.
But that mattered not. They were suspicious. They were not to be trusted. They were just simply thrown out. Some of them probably end up in Gulag. This guy was lucky enough not to. He was simply fired from the military, but he got an appointment in Soviet military industrial complex and was working for the military and some secret enterprise. We have a couple of his IDs from much later. One is dated World War II and one is right after the war, but both of them show that he was working at the top secret enterprise. We can even suspect possibly working on a nuclear bomb because that's the area where he worked. It's known for being a nice production center for the Soviet nukes.
Beautiful
so
set.
Late World War II beginning. Post-war period. So returning to the medal, one thing happened to it, and that was change in the Soviet Uniform Code. In 1943, in June, there was a drastic change in the way the Soviet uniforms looked and also in the way that the medals looked. Many of the medals that were previously established changed their appearance. Those that were produced later on were produced according to new specifications. Those who were produced earlier and already awarded, in many cases the recipients, especially if they were still in the military, were expected to abide by the new uniform code. So they needed to change the appearance of those medals. And 20th anniversary of RKKA, it was only issued once in 1938. Some people received them later for whatever reason, but not by much. It would be unusual actually to see a later date. So typically they all 38, they all originally with type 1 suspension. In 43 those suspensions were no longer needed. So many people who were still serving in the military discarded them, simply did away with them and replaced them with the familiar standard Soviet 5-sided suspension, which looks like this. This one, for example, is from the late 40s or 50s. So is this one. And this is what you typically see on these medals. I have one example of how it happened, and this is very typical. This is somebody who served in the Red Army since almost day one, since 1918, became eligible for the medal for that reason. In 1938, he wasn't particularly prominent. He was a quartermaster initially, and therefore escaped prosecution. And 1943, he was still in the Red Army. He actually changed his profession to artillery, he did quite well in the beginning, in the first months of the Patriotic War, fighting the Germans, and got whole, bunch of awards, and one of them was his old award of 20th anniversary of RKKA, which you can see he now put on the single suspension with other medals, and of course it's the regulation 5-sided type suspension. What happened with his early suspension? He probably thought nothing of it and just discarded it, just threw it away. So for that reason, early suspensions are scarce, and medal with the first type suspension, especially if it's intact. You can see how many parts there are, and you can see that these parts were kind of flimsy and they're easy to lose. This, case in point, this type of rectangular retaining plate that you can see, it's not a very good idea, because every time you want to change a ribbon, for example, because it got soiled, you need to undo the whole thing. So oftentimes you see metal that's original first type suspension, but this part is missing completely. Another vulnerable part on this back plate, you see this little teeth, this little triangular thing. They're designed to hold the ribbon, because remember what I said? It initially was done like this. This is the original configuration. The rectangular part is inside, the metal wraps around it, and this little teeth hold the metal, the ribbon together. But you'll notice one of these little teeth here is missing, because they're very easy to break. There's just a hole left.
Yes, we see that.
So that's a bit of a minus. So it's still a great medal because it still has all the original parts present, and even the ribbon looks most likely, we can never tell about the ribbon if it's the original one or not.
Yes, and that's interesting. So this little rectangular plate is actually scarce.
Very scarce. Very scarce. And again, very often faked, but there are ways to tell. It has to be this specific form, this specific size, the opening, the teeth have to be precisely like you see here in the photo.
Exactly right.
Then the next portion, of course, is the screw plate. Now, originally, of course, it was important to prove that the medal is yours. Later, during the war, there were many more medals awarded. This kind of lost its importance as far as your special privileges or special status. It was nice to have this medal, but the document itself, not so much. And to prove that this medal is really yours, it was really totally unnecessary. So one wouldn't care to hold this screw plate as the serial number. They got worn out, they got lost, they got thrown out. And of course the major factor is that the entire suspension was no longer needed. So it got replaced and thrown out, and most of these now come on the typical 5-sided suspension.
Fascinating.
Still original metal, still the same vintage.
That's so much significance for collectors.
I think it's great to have an original
little
one.
details.
I think, and sometimes you see them wearing it even in the photo in the document, the original Type 1. It's always cool to see this. By the way, this particular groove that I just showed you. If we look for his document, and this is his document for the 20th anniversary medal. Well, look what we have here. He is wearing, in the photo, he is actually wearing the Type 1 medal. His medal now is Type 2. Of course, he discarded the Type 1 suspension. But originally, this is what he had.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, you're an honest man, because anybody could simply say, oh, that's the same medal.
Well, it is the same medal, not the same suspension.
Oh, no, we're talking about, okay, gotcha. Oh, it is the same exact medal.
It is the same exact medal that he is wearing in the photo, but
suspension
with the
is
new
different.
suspension.
Gotcha.
It's only the suspension that changed. And this is what makes it Type 2 now. There are the important parts to know about it, and we'll discuss it just very briefly. But the medal has a specific size, and this is one of the ways to tell originals from copies. You can't totally rely on weight and size alone, because fakers are very knowledgeable about how it should be. Modern technology allows them to often copy the weight and the size very precisely. However, there is some deviation in many cases. So at least it's the first warning sign if the medal is wrong size, if the medal is wrong weight, like drastically different from what we expect. And I can give you some examples of the medals that we have, the specific measurements that we had in the past. Like if you look at the medals we had in recent years, the sizes vary slightly, but just slightly. It's typically around 32.2 millimeters.
Okay.
So the way to measure it, it's very simple. You take your micrometer,
Yes. Yes.
put it at 0, and you do this simple operation. See, this one is 32.3. You make sure to hold it straight, so the eyelet at the very top.
Yes. Yes.
And this is I think, the right technique, at least
Yes.
what I use. And it shows you fractions to 100th of a millimeter. It's never reliable, so we only quote the first decimal, 32. I would round it up to 3.
Okay.
32.3. So all the originals that we've had recently, they were somewhere in that neighborhood, 32.2, 32.3, 32.0. If it's drastically out of this range, then you have to be very suspicious.
It's a red flag, yeah.
It's one red flag. Now the weight. Now the weight can be a little bit tricky. How do you weigh a medal when it's on suspension? Now weighing it completely like this, with suspension on it, is meaningless. Why? Because there are so many parts to suspension. There's ribbon, there's screw plate, this and that, and there is a huge variance in that. So it will really skew your numbers greatly. What you want to do instead is hold it in such a way that the connecting link does not touch the eyelet. And it's hard to find this balance, but you will know you found it when the numbers on your screen, on your electronic scale, stop jumping around. So this is where you know you probably reached the equilibrium. It's not touching anywhere, and you can see it's 24.5, give or take. Same thing with this one. Let's try and weigh it.
And once again, this is in grams.
It's, of course, 24, more precise, 24, when you can hold your other hand maybe steady. Hopefully you didn't have too much to drink yesterday. 24.9.
Okay.
All right. So, and this is very consistent with what we normally see. 23.7, 23.8, 23.8, 23.9, 24.0, 24. It's all revolving around these numbers. So the lowest we see is 23.7, and the highest is 24.8 or thereabouts. So you are safe in that range. If you are way outside that range, beware, something may be wrong.
Once again, red flag.
Now, could be various things. Maybe enamel was replaced, and that changed, somewhat changed the weight. Otherwise, to tell about the enamel, it should be very hard. It's like a glass, basically. Soviet enamel, Russian enamel is essentially glass. So it's very hard. It's cold to touch, and it won't give way when it's poked. Like it sounds like glass will sound. This hard noise, like when you poke on there with something metal, with a nail, for example, on a glass pane. It will make this like ring. So this is how this enamel should ring. If it's soft, if you can leave a poke mark where you touched it, then it's definitely replaced. Also, oftentimes it glows under blue light. Lately, I've seen enamel replacements that don't. So don't assume that black light or ultraviolet light that many collectors use and should use is always a guarantee that what you see is real enamel. It's unfortunately not so. But this tapping test is a very good tool, something collectors should know.
Okay, good
That's
stuff.
what I use. Now, when we discussed this part, you are probably curious about prices.
Yes, the prices. Yes.
Okay, well,
how much are we talking about?
I'm ready to give you all the inside information.
Oh, the inside information.
All the inside information.
That's what I like.
Okay, so I did some analysis of what they sold for on our website and before we even had a website, before the internet age.
Okay.
And you know, we've been around for quite a while.
Yes.
I know I look
31 years.
something like that, yeah. And initially, our way of delivering goods to collectors and marketing to collectors was sending catalogs. So we had paper catalog, very primitive, nothing fancy. So we'll go over some of our old catalogs that I still have in my possession.
That would be very interesting.
And go check out. So the prices for Type 1 medal, just like this one or this one, currently are in the range of $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay.
2,000 being top price for the top condition.
Okay.
If it's less complete, it may be less, but 15 to 2,000 is a fair range. And as far as Type 2, so-called Type 2 metal, new suspension, those go for much less. I would say 6 to 800, depending on condition.
Oh, okay.
Usually, the vulnerable point is enamel, of course, scratches, chips to enamel, repairs to enamel. Sometimes you see little dings here and there. It's important how much the artwork is preserved, because that's a sign, the first most important indication of whether the metal is real. Fakes lack the details in most cases.
Yes,
of
on the
original
relief.
metals.
Yeah, the details. Yeah.
Don't have the micro defects, what they call idiosyncrasies of the die. All the original Soviet metals were die struck, not die cast,
Right.
of course, and they were struck with the same die.
Okay.
And because the die has certain tiny characteristics, micro flaws, those flaws appear on every original metal. You cannot convincingly fake them because they won't have, even the modern fakes, the most up-to-date, using the most modern technology, they will still lack some of those micro flaws.
I see.
So this is what you are looking at when you're looking for a real piece.
Wow.
And as far as the prices back in time, if you go back in time, we'll see that in 2005, we sold metal like this one, the Type 2 suspension, for $500. So you see that prices didn't change. Then the prices skyrocketed. At that time, in 2005, 2006, there was this incredible growth of prices. And a lot of it the reason for a lot of it was the enormous growth of Russia. Russian economy was growing in leaps and bounds. Oil, the main Russian export, and gas went up in price tremendously during those years. You know that at that times American economy was growing in leaps and bounds.
Yes, yes.
And up to 2008. So in 2008 there was a huge reversal. Not immediate for Russian economy because it was still producing gas and oil. Yes. So it took them a couple of years to shrink. But at the top prices, at the top level prices, was about $850, $950. We are talking between 2007 and 2009. And during that same time, if you look, like for example, year 2007, Type 1 metal wasn't all that high. It was still $1,350, $1,400. Okay. So it was, even at that point, lower than it is today, just a little bit. Yes. But you know, a lot of things happened. The war in Ukraine, which was very ill-advised, very bad for Russian economy. And also, previously, it wasn't, the economy of Russia wasn't in great shape. So it went through the turbulence period, which I would say now prices are starting to recover. Okay. And it may still be a good time for collectors to catch them near their lower point. But historically, if you look farther back, and for that we can use our catalogs. Yes, yes. So they'll tell you the true story. So let's look at what this medal would be costing you if you bought it in 2002. That's right around the time when we started with the internet. Wow, you got your original. We already advertised Visit Collect Russia because it was still a new thing at that time. My website, I think we first opened it around 1998, but it had very few things at that point. 1998. And then slowly people got used to using internet instead of catalogs, and we stopped publishing catalogs eventually around 2002, 2003 or so. But if you look at the price, let's find where it's listed. Jubilee medals. And here's a medal for 20th anniversary of RKKA, Type 1. Look at the price. Wow, $250. So today it would be 2,000 or close to that. Yes, yes, yes. It says that it includes original suspension device with old ribbon and original numbered screw plate. Yes, so this is what looks like a 2,000 medal today, or close. Medal for 20th anniversary Type 2, $135. So there's just a $65 difference. Right. So, see what I'm driving at? Yes. You were better off spending your $250 on just one medal. Yes. Instead of buying the same for $135, saving you know $65 or whatever, no, $100, $115, and buying another medal for $115. you are much better off
Yes.
buying the best thing available, because the difference between the two, it's no longer what's $115 it was. Look at what it is now, 800 versus 2,000.
Right. Always go for scarcity and condition.
Exactly.
It's worth the money.
Don't go for quantity.
No, don't try to save that extra few bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is the picture as of 2002. Let's look at what happened before. 1999. Russia just experienced default not long before that, and prices were at the very low point still. They didn't really develop all that much. They probably started to recover around 2000. 20th anniversary, Type 1, $250. And look at this.
That's amazing.
Type 1 with a document. With a screw nut numbered such and such, with matching serial number on the document.
Yes.
You know what it means? I don't even have one right now. But if I had a medal and document that were a set, a match, because none of this matches any of the two medals Type 1 that you just saw. The serial number is different, so it belongs to a different person. Now, if this were a matching set, we are talking at least $3,000, maybe $3,500, more like $3,500, I would say.
Wow.
Possibly even more.
Wow.
So $3,500 versus $425.
That's a solid investment.
I think
Person
so.
was a student.
It takes a lot of patience. And it only works for people who really appreciate this as a hobby.
Correct.
Think about it.
Buy
You don't
and
want to
hold.
do it as an investor, trading stocks.
No, this is not day
It's
trading.
a silly idea, because you will make wrong decisions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and you will not enjoy what you have.
That's right.
The beauty of collecting medals in general, not just Soviet medals, is you can have your cake and eat it too. You
Yes.
enjoy it every day.
Yes.
It's your pride and joy. You
Yes.
research it. You look at it. It looks pleasant. You keep a regional piece of history. But in the end, it may actually bring you a very good appreciation, make it a good investment for your money.
Yes.
If you make the right choice.
Well, sound principles.
If you buy a fake, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. Sound principles.
If you get a fake, then you burned your money. Unfortunately not. But buy wisely.
Yes.
And as I said, you will enjoy it, and in the end, probably make money on it. People that we buy from today, oftentimes, people who bought from me 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and they're very happy with what they can get for their medals.
They gain a profit
And
over
I'm very
time.
happy to buy them back.
Yep.
For much higher.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, look at this. Now, this is about as old as it gets, 1996. I don't think I have.
Ooh, 1996.
96.
That is
We
a
started with catalogs around 93,
That's a classic.
94, and they were just a couple of pages long at that point.
Okay.
So you can see it's much thinner than the later ones.
Yeah, it's okay.
And let's look at what the medal for 20th anniversary would cost you back in 1995.
1995.
Okay, let's look. Type 1, on small rectangular suspension, not much explanation, but we can assume that it's an original suspension, $170. And
Boy.
what would second type cost you? $135. So look at the difference, $35 difference.
Wow.
Again,
Wow.
to remind, today it's $1,300 difference, or somewhere.
Yeah.
Thereabouts, $1,200
Yeah.
difference. 170, almost tenfolds.
That's right.
35 times, what do we have to, it's 20 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
a
it's-
clear indication.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
It's a crystal ball to the future. What should we buy today? Right.
buy better quality stuff, because
Yeah.
you see the difference is negligible
Yes.
between type
Scarcity and condition.
type 1
Yeah.
and type 2. Now, the final, the sad part of our discussion,
Yeah.
and that is, you've guessed, fakes.
Oh, yes, the fakes. Yes.
Must say it.
Expound on
Must
it.
mention.
Expound on
Must
it.
mention.
Yes.
And this, of course, being a pretty valuable medal, comparatively speaking, pretty rare one, 38,000 issues. How many survived? Who knows?
We
After
don't know.
World War II and every calamity that you can imagine. How many survived in original form? How many survived without being heavily damaged? Not that many. To give you a comparison idea, it's 30,000 or thereabouts of medal for defense of Odessa. which is considered the most scarce of Soviet campaign medals.
30. Yeah.
And here we have 38,000, seemingly more, but in fact
Yeah.
it may be less, because more of the defenders of Odessa potentially could have survived compared to 20th anniversary medal. Because
Correct.
purges still continued even in
Yes,
38.
yes,
That was
yes.
somewhat of a factor, to a
Yes.
lesser degree than before, but somewhat a factor. And of course the disasters of the first months or years even of the Patriotic War, when few of the Soviet command survived.
Right, right.
So with all that in mind, it's understandable why the medal is scarce, why it's desirable, because of its history, because of its appearance, which is beautiful, and it's often faked. So I want to show you one of these fakes that actually initially fooled me when I first looked at it.
Okay.
That the first glance, and this is why you cannot just trust the first glance, it looked okay. Yeah, you can, I mean, if you get into details, you can start seeing things like patina is a little bit artificial. Enamel work is not quite on par with the original, so it's very close. But that takes a very careful study. And if you put the two medals next to each other, you will start noticing those tiny, minute differences. And I want people to know. And this is not about the suspension device.
No,
As
no.
I said, this medal would eventually have this kind of
Yes,
suspension.
yes.
It would be totally
Easily
legitimate,
replaced. Yep.
easily replaced. Suspension is no indication
Yep,
of
yep.
whether the medal itself is real. Many people go down that rabbit hole with trusting suspension device. It's absurd. No, could be a regional suspension with a regional medal with very recent suspension, because Russians,
Yes.
even ribbons were changed very often, and
Yes.
suspensions themselves too. So because they wore their medals out often. Look at the details of the star. One thing that you will notice, if the light is good enough, is that these two have very nice, beautiful, translucent enamel
Yes.
that really shines. This one is a little bit duller,
Oh, we can see
slightly
the difference.
different.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, slightly different appearance.
Definitely
Now,
see the
in
difference.
some cases, it may be due to metal being scratched, to wear to the top layer, rubbing to enamel.
right.
But it's not the case here. You don't see that much wear.
Yes,
There are some scratches.
side-by-side comparison, we really see
Don't you?
distinct.
And here's another giveaway. Look at the edges of the star, of the enameled part of the star, and how they meet at the point here.
Okay,
You will notice that this edge,
okay.
especially near the point, is slightly wavy, slightly uneven.
Oh, I see. The fakes are uneven.
Look at the real thing. Very straight,
Much
very
sharper,
precise
yes.
enamel work.
Much more precise.
Done by the former imperial jewelers, people who were still
Yes.
working for the
Yes,
Soviet
yes.
regime.
Yes. High quality pieces,
High
really.
quality pieces.
Yep,
It's
yep.
the old school.
The fakes just lack that little bit of quality.
Exactly. And another thing is, of course, details that I mentioned before.
Okay.
Look at the details, for example, of the grass, the tufts of grass here,
Okay.
where the soldier stands.
Yeah.
He's in a grassy field. And you can see that this part of the medal is very detailed.
Yes. Yes.
On the fake, it's not quite there. Like you will not see the details of the grass that you see on the originals. And most importantly, one giveaway, and I'm giving this away, I'm sure somebody will hear it and a new generation of fakes will appear
Yes. Yes.
that doesn't have this flaw, but for now, I mean, we have to do the best we can for collectors. So take a look at the line of the horizon. It's very straight, and it doesn't have anything but a line.
Yeah.
There's just a line,
Yep.
and and that's that on the original medal,
Yes.
either of these two. When you look at this one, especially on your left, you see that the strands of grass are sort of poking through the line. This is incorrect. It should never be on an original medal.
I see.
Take a close look.
Wow.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yes. Taking that close up there. That is fascinating. Yep. And like you mentioned, the overall patina. Yep. Not exactly what we're expecting.
Yeah, it has a little bit of an artificial kind of lead look to it.
That's it. Yes. Yes.
But patina alone, again, it's not a decisive argument, because a very good fake can have a very convincing patina, and
Yes.
it'll fool even a very experienced collector or dealer.
Wow. Are the fakes also
So-
made in sterling? I mean, well, silver.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They
Oh,
won't.
they
They,
are.
won't. They won't spare silver. Fakes of things of high value, like
Yeah,
say
they'll
hero
use,
stars.
they'll use the precious
Oh yeah,
metals.
yeah, absolutely. They'll use the same. One simple way of getting that metal, even metal of that same exact composition, so no chemical analysis will show that this is a fake. It would be a fool's errand to run it through test, spectral test, for example, to see what exact chemical composition it is.
Yes.
Because they use original metals that are of low value, like metal for combat service, for example,
Yes.
that we discussed in one of our previous episodes. The late issues were common, still common.
Right.
They issued millions of them. And you can buy it for almost the price of silver, at least in
Okay.
Russia.
Oh,
or even
okay.
cheaper in some cases. You can
Okay.
buy it as silver scrap. So you're paying less than the price per ounce, spot price of silver on the market.
Right.
So they use those and melt them down. When they're in bad condition, they're no longer very collectible. You can't sell them to a collector for a premium. So they just use them as a raw material to
Right,
produce.
right.
And because it's the same, more or less the same era, we are talking 10, 20-year difference.
It's impossible to know how
It's
many are surviving.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
With hero stars, case in point. Someday we'll have a special episode just on hero stars.
Oh,
and
I'm
I'll show
looking
you a
forward.
fake
Yeah.
of a hero star
Yeah.
made of 23 karat gold. Same as the original hero star. This is not an indicator.
But it's all fake. Yeah.
It's still a fake. Now, if it's made of something else, then you know it's a
No,
fake.
yes,
and
right.
this is why we want to measure it. Even if they make it of the right materials, they screw up here and there. You cannot convincingly or perfectly, I should
Correct.
say, fake everything, every little detail. For that, you would need to build a factory populated with workers that were educated and learned their skills
Right,
back in 1930s.
Right.
It's a complex,
Yes.
pile of impossibilities.
Oh, just having the original dies is.
Yeah,
Guys
so
are not enough,
so
yeah.
you cannot ever fake metal perfectly,
No,
the Soviet metal,
Right.
and that's a huge deal because that's what makes it a reliable investment, and this is why you can tell whether you have or don't have an original piece.
Yes.
But just to illustrate my point a little bit, let's take this fake and look at the measurements.
Oh,
of it.
okay. Yes, let's measure.
Okay, and as I said, it should be about 32.2 millimeters in width. And what do we have here?
Okay.
So width alone wouldn't tell you if it's a fake or not.
I see. Yes.
And that's often the case. Now, if it wore off the charts, then we would be immediately suspicious. But weight is not a magic bullet.
Wow. Neither
Neither
is
is the size. Neither is the weight.
Yes,
However,
yes.
let's try and see what the scale will show us.
Okay.
Let's adjust and okay. And we do our magic trick. Is holding very carefully the eyelet,
Yes, I like the technique.
the connecting link.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. When I
Okay,
try
what
to
do we
add-
see?
add weight to it.
23.1. I think it's stabilized at 23. 23.3.
Okay.
23.3. Let's do it an extra. 23.4. You will never have the exact same measurement every single time, but at least you will get within. Yeah, it's consistently 23.4. or so,
Interesting.
20
Wow.
to round it up. And what did we say about the originals? Let's look at our notes. Okay, the range 23.7, 23.8, that's the low end of the range, to 24.8 on the high end.
Wow.
So this is way below. This is quite less, quite
Okay.
a bit less.
That's a red flag right there.
That's one of the. I wouldn't immediately declare it fake just based on that because difference is small enough.
Yes.
Well, maybe it's some kind of deviation. Maybe the die wasn't turned correctly when they
Yeah,
struck
yeah.
this particular. But it's the red flag. You immediately have to become suspicious
Yeah. Yeah.
and start looking at other things. So it's overall there are ways to do it, and hopefully I helped our collector community to learn something and use these magic tools.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. You've done well, Igor. Done well.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my God. I mean, listening to you for the past hour, My mouth is like all sandy now. It's dry as heck.
Was it
But
such a
my
dry?
brain is full.
Was it such a dry presentation?
No, no.
I know how to treat it though.
What you do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have a medicine for you.
Oh,
I have to go with my dry presentation.
okay.
I have a nice bottle of dry red French
Oh,
rye.
my lord. Okay,
How about
the good dry. We're talking about, you know,
In a good
it was
way.
a nice dry presentation.
You know,
It
dry
was,
as in
you know,
slight,
not all wet.
slightly tannic.
Yes, that's it. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, good.
So, what do we got today then?
Oh, let's check.
You're
it
a man of
out. Let's
surprises.
see what's there. Let's see what Cat dragged in. We happen to have here today
Okay.
a bottle of Haut Medoc.
Haut Medoc.
Haut
Okay.
Medoc. Yeah, you would say Haut Medoc.
Yeah.
I would say that too, but French, you know that.
Yeah. How do you pronounce
So Haut
Nice.
Medoc, it's an area on the left side of the Gironde River, which is, if you look at the map of France, there are two rivers flowing through Bordeaux region, and this is where all the winemaking where they meet. One river is Dordogne, and the other one is Garonne. Where they meet, they make a bigger river, Gironde, which flows into Atlantic Ocean.
French? Okay.
And around this meeting of the, you could say, two rivers,
Yeah,
third
yeah.
one, a bigger one, that's where all the things are happening as far as Bordeaux wine.
I see.
There is right bank to the north
Mm-hmm.
of the Dordogne River. There is left bank to the south, and there and much south. We discussed it. The area called Grave,
Yes.
still a very important part of Bordeaux. This one is a large area called Medoc, and within it there are sub-regions, smaller regions that are all famous and important in their own right. And one of them is Haut Medoc. What Haut means, it's higher, meaning high elevation.
Yes,
There's
yes.
Medoc area, and the part of the Medoc that's that's to the south. That part is called Haut Medoc because of its
Gotcha.
high elevation, and this produces very good wine.
Oh boy. So we're looking at a good bottle here.
I hope so, but you'll be the judge.
Okay.
Let's see what we have here.
Oh, fancy corkscrew you got there.
Oh yeah, my children bought it for me for birthday.
Okay.
You know, this just goes to show that there is some use of children. That they're not all.
Oh, I see. Well, your children are very useful.
Sometimes.
Yes.
But no, I'm very grateful to them. For
Very
this.
nice. Very nice.
This was great. I love it, and they use it
yes.
all the time.
Okay. A good corkscrew always has the seal breaker. A
You don't want
stubby
to just,
short knife.
You don't want to just rape it.
That's right. Yes. Just rip it off. Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
Yes. You always have a good technique there.
Let's see. The cork looks good on the outside. Let's see.
Yep. Yeah, it's important that the cork seals well.
It's important that it doesn't have any rot to it.
Oh, rot. Okay.
Yeah, any wet points, like if it's wet on the top, it's an immediate
that's a no.
sign that something is off.
Hmm.
Because cork is there to protect wine, to not let air in. When it rots, it means that the air had access to wine
Yes.
and oxidized it and destroyed it.
That's right. And I heard that pop.
You are not supposed to.
Oh, not so well.
Real sommelier technique, you would never hear.
That's okay. Oh, that's
It
interesting.
just goes to show I'm not a sommelier.
No, I thought the pop would be a good indication that it was vacuum sealed and whatnot. No, okay.
Nah, you're not supposed to.
I see. Not supposed to hear a pop. Gotcha.
No, unless it's champagne, I guess.
You always
Okay.
have fine stemware.
Just,
I don't know
if
where
you
you
have
get 'em.
good wine, well, spoil it.
Oh, Lord.
Although I'll tell you a funny story about that.
Okay.
So the funny story is, see if you like it.
Yes. Not too much. I'm Asian.
Oh, please. Everybody's Asian. So,
Oh,
not too bad.
wow.
See, this one, well, tell me what you think about it.
Okay, I tell you what. This just smells so mellow. So mellow.
But the taste. This is exactly what I expect of Haut Medoc.
Wow. I mean, Igor, you always have the best. This
But,
really is nice.
Thank you. But this one has much more structure. This one is more tannic. You were asking what tannic. This one is tannic. This one kind of dries your mouth.
Now you're using the word structure, like an architect.
Yeah, it holds the wine together. It's not too voluptuous. It's not like all over the place.
Holding the wine together.
Yeah. It's like gives you a sensation of dryness on your tongue. This is what tannic means.
That's right.
Because you know, tannins.
There's not a sweet wine.
Yeah, of course. There's no sweetness to it, and I love to see it in wine.
Yeah.
But it's still a very complex wine. But this one has a bigger proportion, at least it's supposed to. Let's see if it's the case of Cabernet Sauvignon than Merlot. This is typical for the left bank wines. Let's see, somewhere it should say here. Haut Medoc, 1919. Yeah, here we go. 58% Cabernet Sauvignon, so very large proportion of Cabernet Sauvignon. And like most of them, it's 3 grapes. Cabernet, Merlot, and Petit Verdot.
Okay.
And this Cabernet is a hard kind of grape.
When you mean hard, what do you mean by that? A hard grape?
It produces wine that takes longer to develop. It takes more years for it to become a good wine. If you drink it too young, unlike Merlot, to a large extent than Merlot, it will be too tannic. It will be, I think they call it astringent.
I see.
It means like it will tie your tongue completely.
Okay.
It will be like awful.
And what a coincidence is 2019.
2019.
Another great year.
Yeah, maybe the last great
Was
year.
Patriots, yeah. Well, it shall return.
Hopefully not.
We hope so.
Not.
Wow. No, this is really. I mean, most people do not like dry wines. I mean, I'm just my anecdotal survey, but this dry wine is just as good as any other sweet wine or whatever.
I think this is how the wine should be. This is what it means.
How wine should be. Yes.
This is the wine that you can enjoy with food.
Oh yes.
Sweet wine, it's good. It may be good on its own. It has its place, absolutely. I like some French and not French sweet wines. They're awesome, like Sauterne, for example. But it's rarely paired with food well.
Gotcha.
Some maybe cheese. I don't know.
And it's interesting. It's kind of like a thirst quencher.
Absolutely. yeah.
That's what's curious about it.
It's an awesome thing. Yeah, but you were talking about stemware. I'll tell you a funny story. We were in Champagne region and went to a few of the producers of Champagne. It's done completely differently than Saint Bartholomew there or Burgundy. And there are some bigger producers, of course, huge famous houses.
Okay.
Like Bollinger, for example, or Vive Clicquot. But there are smaller ones that produce awesome champagne.
Yes.
And at one place, we were given a really good tour, and we drank champagne. And she poured champagne in small straight glasses, not like your champagne flutes.
Oh, it was like a tube.
Yeah, it's like just a plain glass.
It wasn't narrow than the top.
No, it was just straight glass. They said, like, you drink champagne like this. This is exactly how we drink champagne. We go, when we feel like lunch, like picnic, for example, we take a bottle of champagne and we take these simple glasses. Try it. You know, it was a different sensation, very different than what you normally expect from champagne.
Yeah.
Market different. But it was very nice in its own right.
I see.
So all this talk about the fancy glasses, typically this is what you want to have.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's the wine that matters.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. Oh, but like you said, when it's shaped like a tube, it's a different kind of sensation. Oh, fantastic! Really nice, really nice. What's funny is that every bottle I've tasted from you, it just gets better and better. I don't know. I mean,
maybe you're developing taste.
Oh, okay. Yes. Possibly,
something that you didn't pay attention to.
Possibly.
Yeah, I know by myself, it grows in you.
Right.
Why I like French wine? Because the more I drink it, the more I like it.
Yes.
Not in terms of quantity.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But just in terms of.
That's right. No, we're not looking to get
the better I understand it. And
that's right. No, we're not looking to get arrested for DWI.
No, not today.
That's it. Oh, delicious.
See, like 2018, it's still considered young because this is real claret. This is hard Cabernet Sauvignon dominated.
Okay, relatively young. Yeah.
It's relatively young for this type of wine.
Gotcha. Less than 5
So
years.
in another 5 years, it would become much better.
Oh, will it?
But we
Wow.
cannot always wait.
Wow. Gotcha. This you could bet on. That in another 5 years, it'll just get better.
Yeah, as long as you hold it well, as long as you keep it in the right conditions.
In
you
a
cannot just keep
correct
it on the
environment.
shelf.
Okay.
Yeah, you need a cellar or you need a wine
Yes.
cooler.
And you would store it horizontal, right? For the
That's
best,
the tradition. Some people
yeah.
question the wisdom of it because they say
okay.
it doesn't really matter because
Okay.
cork is not supposed to
Okay.
let the
As
air
long as the
through,
cork
doesn't
is
matter.
good.
Yeah,
it
but
should not
yeah,
matter.
supposedly because it wets the cork at the bottom.
Right, gets a better seal.
Yeah, it gets
Yeah.
a better seal. Hope.
Okay.
I
I hope so.
at least in France, all the wineries that we ever visited with my wife, they were always horizontally. And some of their wines that they have in their cellar somewhere deep,
Yeah, yeah.
they don't show to everybody.
Yeah.
Or they can be 50 years old, 100 years old. Wow. And they're still drinkable.
Wow.
They're still good.
Vertical.
No, they keep them horizontal.
Oh, no, they keep them horizontal.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
They do keep them horizontal.
Gotcha, gotcha. So it is the preferred
It's
method.
the preferred
Yeah,
method.
yeah,
You know what? I
But-
go with tradition.
Yeah, right. See.
It's tested for how many years?
Whew. Oh my God. Well, Igor, it's been another informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to subscribe. Get that subscription going. You know, it costs you nothing. And wow, you have been babbling for over an hour, and it felt like 10 minutes.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, Professor Igor, right here.
Oh,
That's good.
Professor.
Okay, all right. Thank you, ladies
next
and
time.
gentlemen. Yes, until next time. And well, cheers.
Cheers. With whatever is left.